We're going to talk more about this now with our international affairs editor, Philip Turle. Philip, first of all, tell us a bit more about how this operation is being organized.
Okay, first point. This is the first time this kind of giant organization has taken place for over 30 years since the breakup of the former Soviet Union. It was sort of swept under the carpet after that period for quite a number of years due to the war in Iraq and the fact that Europe was deemed to be less under threat. That's all changed, of course, since the war in Ukraine. So what we've got here is NATO bringing together all its member states with a high number of soldiers, of military hardware, which is going to be used over the next few months up until the end of May. So 90,000 soldiers, sailors and airmen, 50 naval vessels, 80 aircraft, and 1,100 combat vehicles. The drills are going to start in the United States, then they'll move over to Eastern Europe. But this is all part of NATO's plans to flex its muscles, really, to say, look, to Vladimir Putin, if you're thinking about invading a NATO country, then think twice because we are ready to take you on. Now, if you're a bit rusty about what NATO actually is, these are a few facts and figures. It was established in 1949 after the end of the Second World War. There are 31 countries in it, plus Sweden, which is waiting to join NATO. It's been stopped for the moment by Turkey, but it is going to take part in these military exercises. There are 29 European and 2 North American countries, Canada and the United States, of course, and the most recent admission was Finland, which joined the organisation just last year. So all of that is going to be taking place over the next few months. I think there's definitely a feeling that this is the time to show the Russians and Vladimir Putin that NATO is a force to be reckoned with.
All of this, of course, coming against a backdrop of the war in Ukraine. I'm guessing that's not a coincidence.
No, it certainly is not a coincidence, and I don't think there's any coincidence either that this is starting in February, which is the second anniversary of the invasion of Ukraine by Vladimir Putin. So this is a bid by, I think, NATO is saying to itself, if we're going to stop war, the only way to stop war is to prepare for war, which is what they are doing by showing the Russians that they are ready to take them on. Now, if you look at what has been said, you have the head of the French Rapid Reaction Force who is saying that the war in Ukraine is a reminder that we must be ready to use all our strength and collective efforts to dissuade our enemy from troubling peace. Everything is possible, even the unthinkable. The unthinkable in this case being the fact that Russia invaded Ukraine back in February 2022. And if you look at the areas where these drills are going to take place, that is pretty clear that this is all geared up to trying to dissuade the Russians from moving anywhere further forward. You've got the countries of Eastern Europe, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, Poland and Romania, which will all be on the front line. Norway is also taking part, and Germany is being used as a military base for all of this. So that is really what NATO is doing. And I think there's also another reason, and that is that they're saying, okay, maybe Vladimir Putin is tempted to see if he can test NATO by maybe trying to invade Estonia, where there is a large pro-Russian, Russian-speaking population, to see what would happen if that was the case. Just one thing that he needs to bear in mind, that Article 5 of NATO means that any attack against a NATO country is an attack against all NATO countries, and that's something that the Russians need to bear in mind. If you invade Estonia or anywhere else in Eastern Europe, then you'll have the whole of NATO on your back.
Right. So given all of that, is Russia likely to take any notice of all of this?
Well, I think yes and no. I think this is definitely a way of NATO saying to Vladimir Putin that we're ready to intervene if you attack any NATO country. The problem for NATO is they're having to do this now because there is an election coming up in the United States later this year, and there is a strong probability, if the opinion polls are proved right, that Donald Trump could get back into the White House. And Donald Trump has a pretty negative view of NATO. He's threatened to pull out of it several times. He was prevented from doing that last time round by his advisors, but this time round he could be pretty much inclined to do that, and that would be bad news for any future effort by NATO to try to fight off the Russians.
All right, Philip, thanks for that. France 24's Philip Turle.